I'm a forensic anthropologist, and I'm an archaeologist, and I have amongst other things, and I have the scientific background, so I can speak science as well, and I can use these science words when I'm doing readings, and then they're like, oh, you know that? I'm like, yep, I know that. And you still animal communicate? I'm like, oh yeah. So horses for me, I don't really have a memory of my life without them. Let's put it that way. And I can't imagine my life without them. Any of them, quirks and all.
That's awesome. I love that. So like another thing I never like knew about with you until I had clients start coming to me and being like, I have this amazing animal communicator come and talk to my animal. When did that journey start for you? And how did you even know that you had the gift or the ability or the skill set to do so? Like, how did that journey start?
Well, that's actually kind of a twofold question.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. I never realized that I didn't have that gift. It was just so natural to me. I was always communicating with things that my people would call my imaginary friends, or with animals, and just having full-on conversations with them and then reporting it back to all the adults around me. And a lot of the adults were like, careful with that, what are you doing? Right. But I just never didn't have it, so it just was like there all the time. I would hear opinions, whether from animals, and whether I wanted to or not, they'd give me like a grocery list of demands that they wanted, and I would talk to them about their lives, about if they're happy, how they're feeling in their body, medical or mentally, or if they wanted to play a certain game. And I would just have these conversations all the time. Yeah.
So one would, and then obviously, sure. like not I can understand certain language with horses, but say like playing devil's advocate, somebody who hears
sure,
that,
of course,
like, you know, there's a stigma on it. Like, how do you know they're talking to you? How do you know it's not just like your Jiminy Cricket? Like, you know what I mean? like, you know, thinking of somebody that might be watching this that's like an animal communicator, like, how does it even work? Like, what's the process?
As a professional one now, I started doing this professionally more around the age of 10 years old. So the way it really works is I ask the person I'm talking to, the human, that is, the human I'm talking to, not to tell me anything about the animal, except the name, because I ask them to repeat the name to me 3 times to make sure I connect to the accurate energy. And then I describe the horse, their characters, any weird quirks they might have. And then I usually like to try to provide as much as, well, I guess you could call it evidence as possible before I get started reading. And depending on which horse I'm working with, one was very funny. Is like, my owner smells weird now. And I said that to the owner, and she's like, oh my God, I just changed my shampoo.
Oh my God.
I'm like, okay, well, I'll talk to him about being a bit more polite, but that's what
bold statement. Yeah.
What came across. But that horse is very, very bold, and yeah.
Gotcha.
Very bold. I wouldn't expect anything less from him.
Wow.
But yeah, so, and then I would, depending on the horse, because I asked, like, what can I say to show that this is you? So sometimes they might share like a special moment they had with their human. They'll say,
but you
like,
have no idea
memory.
No.
Wow. No. And I just repeat what I'm being told, and I'm like, does this make sense to you? Because it sounded really weird coming out of my mouth, but does it make sense to you? And usually they're like, yeah, of course. Wow, that's awesome. And then we get to work.
Wow. So it's almost like this like magical kind of way of communicating with the horse that's just between you and the horse, and it's coming through to you from the horse in some kind of mystical way for you to understand them a little deeper.
Exactly. I like to think of it like a 3-way phone call. Me, the horse, and their human.
Wow.
They're human. And I'm asking questions. I'm talking directly to the horse. I don't talk out loud all the time. And all of us animal communicators, we all work slightly differently. Sometimes I'll actually hear horses talking to me. Sometimes they'll be showing me images of what was going on, what bothered them. One of them, I showed up and apparently he wasn't listening or anything like that. And I was like, "What's going on, buddy? We need to actually be normal a little bit." Like, right. And he turned out he was new to the farm, and he was describing missing his friend from another
Wow.
place. And he was about a 3-year-old,
Yeah.
lovely, big pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it is just like, I miss, where's this person? Where's this horse? I don't know where this is. And I described this other horse, and the client went back to whoever they got them from. I'm not sharing names for anonymity. And they described this horse. They're like, "Oh my God, that's my personal horse."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I described the horse, and just so they just share memories or how they're feeling, how their body feels, what they'd like, pretty much just like a regular conversation.
Wow. So like, how do you know, how does, like, is there like some kind of training that you can go through to kind of further define this skill set? Because it really is a skill, I think.
It is. Yeah, I think of it like an instrument where you have to tune it, and you have to practice, and you have to make sure that you can kind of verify who's talking at times, and make
Right.
sure everything is clear and static. And I have to practice. I always have to make sure I have like all these clear channels of communication that are open. And as far as any training goes, when I started doing this, there wasn't a lot available. I mean, I was just there at the dawn of the internet, kind of trying to like wait for 5 minutes for it to connect to the internet, and then I'm on it and I'm researching a little bit, and my mom's like, "Get off the computer, I need the phone," kind of thing like that.
The
So
dial up.
yeah, it's like nightmares still. But no, but so as far as training, when I was younger, I really had to figure a lot out for myself. But now we're living in a much more, I guess you could say, connected and open society in many different ways, whether it's the connection to the internet or connection to unseen worlds. It's much more accessible, and you can access a lot of other people that have experiences throughout all different fields and receive training from them. I do help people learn how to develop this if they want, because I think everybody can do it.
That's
Because
awesome. Not many
we're
people say
just
that. Not many people in your field say that everybody can do it. I've heard people say it's a gift that once you become
Mhm.
aware of it and you develop it,
Yeah.
it's like kind of a one-stop shop where it's not necessarily spread to everybody, but you think
Yeah,
everybody's
I
capable of
think
doing this?
from what I've seen, I've had people come to me to learn how to do this. They're like, "I don't think I have any talent for this at all, but I want to try." And then as we work through it, I see that they do develop this talent. And I think a lot of it boils down to the culture we're raised in a lot, because sometimes we're raised in situations where everything is like you have to fit in one box, and everything is completely closed down, and nope, anything outside the box, absolutely not. "Oh, you had a conversation with so and so and you're not supposed to talk to them? Okay, no, that's an imaginary friend." So the
Right.
more we hear that, the more we kind of absorb that, the more we shut down our brains access to that as we grow up. So I personally believe that as we go through the training to develop this, we also break down those like mental barriers that we put up, saying, "Oh, we're crazy. Oh, we can't do this. So that's just a little too weird."
Right.
And once those fall, they find that when they do try to do readings for others, the people are like, "Yeah, wow." So I think everyone could do it if they want to, but you have to um, be very clear that you want to be able to do this because
Right.
it's like you can control who and you talk to, but sometimes there's this random weird thing and you're like, okay, not you right now, go away kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared because it's kind of like once you're like this, you're like a beacon,
Right.
like a buoy in an ocean, and everything that's unseen is kind of like, hello,
Right.
let's talk. Hello. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, it's 5 a.m. bedtime for me. Kind of
Yeah.
like I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
sleeping. And when I learned to control it, I would actually put like a physical hat on my head, and that would signify I'm done. I'm closed for business for the day. And
Right.
then yeah. Yeah.
So
So I
there's
think you
like a
can.
lot of symbolism too of like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what you need to do to like not only keep yourself regulated mentally and emotionally,
Yeah.
but also creating boundaries from this way of communication so that you're not overwhelmed with,
Yeah.
hearing different messages and stuff like that. And I would say it's no real different than listening to our own voices or voices from our
Mm-hmm.
past, like whether it's parental or whether it's maybe an
Yeah.
old horse trainer that was not super nice to you, that's that
Mm-mm.
voice is in your head. Would that be like a similarity kind of what it's
It
similar to?
I'm trying to I'm thinking about that analogy. Yeah, it's kind of like if you think about when you think and you have words, depending on how you think, people think differently. Some have more uh thoughts as words, some have pictures. It's kind of like that, but when we think, we're kind of aware we're thinking, but it when I'm connecting with something else, it's kind of like coming from somewhere that's not in my brain, but I'm hearing these words and I'm
Like a
hearing these
supernatural
sounds.
kind of thing.
Kind of. It's just sometimes I'm like, where am I doing right now?
Right,
Um,
right,
and sometimes it comes with smells. Sometimes it comes with feelings. If because horses are, of course, horses. They don't necessarily have the human vocabulary like we do. So sometimes I just have to do my best to interpret what they're trying to tell me. Like
right,
for example, if a horse has pulled a muscle or something like that, of course I don't have all horse muscles, but an equivalent as close as can be equivalent in my body would suddenly start to like hurt or
wow,
something like that, and be like, oh, is he feeling like blah blah blah, because this is what I sense with his muscle, because I literally can't lift my arm right now and I was totally fine.
wow.
Yeah,
So
so
it's
it
almost like
comes in
you
many different ways.
embody the
Yeah.
you're like you're feeling the horse and you're
Yes.
embodying what the horse is trying to communicate. Because I mean, just like the horse, I don't
Yeah.
think they understand what we're saying
Mm-mm.
some of the time, but sometimes if you say certain things, their ears will kind of peak up, like,
Uh-huh.
what did you just say? Like, I totally caught on to that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and I mean, horse
Horses.
people get it, but to the untrained
Yeah.
horse ear, that might sound a little wackadoo, you know?
It might, but also now science is catching up with all the research they're doing. It turns out that horses can really pick up on certain words and understand, kind of have a similar understanding of their meanings like us humans do. And
That's really
horses are much better at understanding us than we are at understanding them
or we're
a lot of
understanding
times.
ourselves.
Yeah, that's a very, very, very big one. But generally speaking, the way I connect, like tailor how I do it to the particular horse,
Right.
because all horses are completely, I'm sure you know, obviously totally different, and you can't wander up to one and just behave as like one size fits all for horses, because
Right.
that's one quick way to an unsafe situation.
100%. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, so
Um,
I tailor it.
Speaking of like, boxes and sometimes like being stuck in boxes and certain things,
Yeah.
what has been your experience of like the box of the horse industry? Like, with your speciality, have you experienced like an embrace from from the horse industry, or have you received a lot of pushback and maybe a
Mm.
lot of stigmatizing around what you do? What has been your experience?
Well, very complex answer again. Thank you for
Yes,
these
that's all right.
questions.
Give it all to us so we can we're
As
okay with
far
whatever your answer is.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
As far as the horse world goes, I absolutely love the people in it. I mean, if you need help, the horse people will rally and we'll figure something out. Doesn't matter, we don't know you, horses are involved, we'll figure it out. But as far as how I'm accepted, I find that I'm kind of in a unique situation because a lot of times people will approach me and be a little dubious, but then if I'm introduced by another horse person that they respect and has for lack of a better word, a big name in the industry, suddenly things are a bit smoother for me as well, and they're a bit more careful they're what they say to me because they know I know that person. And also sometimes I find it, I'm sorry, my dog is acting up right now, she's right
No,
here.
you're good.
um
Maybe he wants to be
and
part of the conversation.
that's very possible. I have a husky mix, so
Ooh,
always front
gorgeous.
and center,
Yep.
whether I want it or not.
Yep.
And I always,
Totally.
yeah. But and also I do find that within the horse community, and I guess you could expand it as well because I don't work solely with horses,
Right.
so you can expand that to the larger animal community, I guess you could say. Is that when they hear a bit about the background and they hear that I'm Indigenous, Native American, it's very stereotypical, but for some reason people are like, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense, she's Native American, she will do this. So while it kind of irks me sometimes that that's the
Right.
first place they're gonna go to with
Right.
like this vision of Pocahontas singing to rocks and all that stuff, but sometimes it helps because
Right.
then they're a bit more open and it becomes a bit more uh not valid, but it becomes something that's more interesting and there's an understanding there as to why someone might view the world or the unseen worlds in a particular way.
Right.
And then I do notice that they open up a little bit more. And of course there are the people who just are like, yep, nope,
They just
don't, yeah,
shut up.
just that wall's there. I'm like, okay, that's fine, I'm not here to force anything. If this isn't for you, then it's not for you, and that's totally okay. I mean, I hate math. Am I going to be a math teacher? No, that's just not me. So if you don't want this, that's okay. But I found that it's the people that are really usually like, no, 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 that do end up coming to me after a while about hearing about me. And then they're like, yeah, okay, I am sorry about how I behaved before.
So it's
Yeah.
almost like they had a boundary, but in some ways there was like evidence to the contrary. Like,
Yeah, it's for example, usually people that have that type of boundary, when they turn to someone like me, it doesn't have to be me. It's usually because something has happened with their animal, with their horse,
yeah.
that they can't figure out, that their vets can't figure out, or in the worst case scenario, they've had a tragic situation and their horse has passed and they need some type of communication, some type of closure because they didn't have it
Right.
with the horse. And then they'll turn to me. And energy works the same. Horses work the same whether they're physically here or whether they have passed. So, and then I do that connection for them. And
That's a
having
beautiful
lost,
thing.
yeah, having lost horses on my own, I can it's like painful.
Yeah.
So not everybody that's talking with me is like happy when I'm doing the reading. I'm there to help, help them, help the horse,
Yeah.
help the situation in general.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's a beautiful thing too, because I feel like horse people, I feel like we hide uh feeling deeply for our animals in some
Oh
ways.
yeah.
And when certain situations arise, it creates this vulnerability that, may seem unnatural. And so it's nice to have
Yeah.
somebody kind of share that space and want to bring comfort and
Yeah,
clarity, you know what I mean?
absolutely.
So that's like,
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing, a
Yeah.
beautiful way to serve people too.
Yeah, I do like being of service because it just helps, and things tend to soften, and people learn that it's okay not to be okay all the time. And it's okay to ask for help with horses. It's okay. You don't have to know everything
Right.
because I mean, I've been around horses for 30 plus years. And I mean, I'm still going to be learning about horses after I pass away. There's no way to learn everything about them.
Right.
And it's being part of this community horse community has been very like helpful to me to learn different aspects of horses, but also very embracing in a lot of cases of what I do. And different countries embrace me differently as well.
That's really
So,
cool. That's really awesome.
yeah.
Um, what kind of challenges have you faced in your current role in the horse world with animal communicating, and how were you able to overcome them?
Well, there are a few different challenges. So, as far as from an animal communicator perspective, there are some times when people just don't like what you have to say or what the horses have to say. And they're like, no, my horse can't possibly be feeling that. They absolutely love when I do this. And I'm just there like, "Mm, according to them, that's not their favorite thing in the world. No. So I would recommend you don't do that anymore. And if you stop doing that, you will see this behavior kind of disappear." Yeah, for example, there was a a client who's agreed I share this, but I'm keeping them anonymous, of course, who loves the horses, everything. And there was this one horse who just wouldn't lower his head. And it's a ginormous horse. So if he's not lowering his head, you can't reach it. And I was like, he doesn't like that you kiss his nose whenever he lowers his head. They're like, no, but he loves the kisses. He loves the kisses. He needs the kisses. That's what he loves. I'm like, yes, I know. I love to kiss my horse, but my horse is more amenable to that. This guy just doesn't want it. So sometimes the challenges are difficult, and of course, with these communications and what I have to say. But sometimes, for example, with that situation, I was like, just stop kissing his nose, and you'll be able to reach his head. And then she didn't want to, but then finally she was like, fine, and now has no problem. His head
Wow.
is lower to the ground, no issue. And then as soon as she gives it a little kiss, up there we are in the sky again. But there's also sometimes where uh, the people seem to want to take my advice over, let's say, a veterinarian. And I'm going to be the first person, don't ever do that. You listen to your vet. That's not the type of training I have. If the vet said this, I'm not going to come in and contradict what a vet says.
Right.
There might be other things going on in the situation, and I can tell you about those other things, but I'm not going to completely like erase what a vet says. That they have their training. They're there to help you with your animals from a certain way, a medical perspective.
Right.
And so you always have to listen to them first.
Right.
So don't listen to me over your vet. That's one of the things that I'm very, very careful. Like, so people ask, should I do this surgery? I'm like, I'm not going to really touch that, because if you're gonna ask a horse, do they want to go through a surgery? They're gonna tell you no, because none of us really want to do that. That's not what we're gonna raise our hand and just volunteer for usually.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not gonna contradict that. That's a challenge too, but and the challenge is another thing that might not seem too much of a challenge is that people, once they get a taste of this, they want to do it all the time. And I'm like, hey, that's great, but I'm not a shortcut for you to work with your own horse, because this is your horse. And yes, I can easily communicate this way, but believe me, I do groundwork with my horse
Right. So
every
don't
day.
substitute calling me for
Yeah.
getting out of
So,
work.
yeah, I was like, they asked me, like, how could I fix this? I was like, well, I think you need to work with your horse on that, because that's just sounds like more like a groundwork thing. So just build that bond with your horse.
Right.
Yeah. So those are only some of them, but yeah.
And how do you overcome those? I mean, how do you, is it tough for you to kind of like push back when somebody is like, listen, like, I don't, say for example, they don't feel like their vet gave them the best advice,
Yeah.
and
So
they come to you and they receive more clarity and more of like a solution-based answer
yeah.
that maybe helps their horse more than maybe what the vet suggested, or maybe they got multiple opinions, but it doesn't all line up or make sense to them. How do you combat that? That has to be challenging.
It can be very challenging, but what I've learned over the years is to be like to have obviously a thick skin,
Yeah.
but also to be able to be comfortable with telling people things that they don't want to hear. In fact,
Okay.
when I start a session with someone, I tell them, I'm going to tell you the things the way I'm told them, not because you want to hear them. So I'm not just going to say something to make you happy. I'm going to give you the details. I'm going to
Right.
give you everything you need to know, but I'm not going to make something up. And as far as when it comes to medical care, I will always obviously default to the veterinarian. But if they push me to read for that, I'll usually tell them the exact same thing as the veterinarian. And they'll usually be like, oh, that's what my vet said.
So
Like, okay.
sometimes it can be in support of what the vet
Yeah,
said, which can
absolutely.
help them make a better decision.
Absolutely. And there are times when they'll call me before I'll call a vet, so they can, because the vet sometimes has limited time when they
Right.
come to visit a horse, and they can say, like, my horse has all these problems. Which should I focus on? Like, well, as far as what your horse is saying, this is standing out to him the most. Like, please look at his back, or look at his stomach, or the certain way he breathes, or look at his teeth.
Right.
And then they'll do that, and then usually when they do report back to me and they're like, yes, that is accurate, but I always tell them, if a vet says something, you follow the vet. I'm not
Right.
that type of doctor at
Right.
all.
Right.
At all. That's not what I do.
Do you find that do you have any run-ins with veterinarians as far as like them kind of giving you pushback,
uh
or do you find
as
that they're in support of utilizing your skill set to kind of help define something maybe going on with an animal?
Yeah, I have run into a lot of different vets in many different countries, and there are some that will actually refer people to me.
Wow.
And then there are some that know of me and have no problem with me working with their clients, because
Right.
they do know that I'm always going to, like, say, follow your vet.
Yeah.
But they also say sometimes that the clients share what I say, and they're like, I didn't even think to look there. and
Right.
then
Right.
and then they look, and they take a more holistic approach, certain vets as well. So those vets are usually like, want to be there when I'm there, because they're interested, and they're like, how did she do this? Wow, that's cool.
That's
And then
awesome.
there are other vets who are like, yeah, this doesn't work. You Okay, you got it that one time. You got it. You were right, but generally I don't believe in this.
Okay.
And then I'm like, okay, that's okay. And then they examine the horse, and they're like, okay, yes, okay. One time, one pass. I still don't believe in it. Like, okay, that's okay.
Gotcha. So you have like the science minds, and then maybe have more of the free
Yeah.
spirit type mind where they're
Yeah.
open to it and they're more
Yeah.
geared towards the solution for the horse, not being
Yeah,
like a medical
absolutely.
miracle maker kind of thing.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
they know I'm not gonna be like, oh, I can tell you everything, unlock every secret, because no one can. And I find that I'm in a fairly unique position as well, because I do have a very heavy and scientific background
right,
with credentials
right.
and like a doctorate degree almost to complete it. That's it. I'll get that in a couple months. So
Amazing.
when they see that, they're like, okay,
She
all
might
right,
know a thing or two.
there might be something here.
Yeah, yeah,
She teaches at universities, and she's like, in my main life, so to speak,
yeah.
I'm a forensic anthropologist, and I'm an archaeologist, and I have all, amongst other things, and I have the scientific background, so I can speak science as well, and I can use these science words when I'm doing readings. And then they're like, oh, you know that? I'm like, yep,
That's
I know
amazing.
that. And
That's
you still animal communicate. I'm like, oh yeah, they don't cancel each other out.
that's amazing. I love that. I love that you have that background too, because I feel like you're already like a Sherlock Holmes in a way.
Yeah,
You already are attuned to trying to figure out the issue and dissect the issue.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that I think is a skill set we can all kind of adapt or grow in with our horses to
Oh
find
yeah.
solutions. What advice do you have for people who are either in the horse world, they've been in the horse world for a long time, or they're just starting out with horses? What are some things that they can do to maybe tap into their inner communicator, to better connect and learn from their horse, or how to better connect with their horse? What's some pieces of advice you can give them?
Okay. Okay. Well, we all connect to these unseen aspects fairly differently. So a good way just to start might sound really simple and silly. Just go down to wherever your horse is and hang out with them. Don't necessarily have a lesson plan, so to speak, or a training plan. Just hang out with them, talk to them, just be in their space. Focus on how they react when you say certain words. Their faces change sometimes, and that is one way people start being able to kind of pick up on subtle changes. By it's all about small steps that you can build upon and see results from. uh, and it's just like, why did the face change? Some horses are very good at communicating with their face. Like,
Animated, yeah,
it's like, whoa, why? There's obviously something going on. And
right,
sometimes they're reading other horses. Just learn how to read horse language, be fluent in horse, in the regular language. As a horse person, that also is very helpful to know how to,
totally. Like herd dynamics
yeah,
and their
her
relationship to each
dynamics,
other, and
yeah. But also through this, you can start to see sense the energy that's there between the different horses. And as you pick up that energy, you can kind of start to have a shift in, like, something happened and your horse is like a bit agitated, and then you build back and you work backwards and you try to see what happened. And then before you know it, you're starting to have this conversation, because the next step is where you get to actually talk with the horse. It's like, I see you're agitated, what's up? And then you have to be prepared to get an answer. You can't push for an answer. If one comes, great. If one doesn't come, also great. And if the answer came and it's totally not what you thought it would be, that's great too. And so you have to be open. And because I remember when I was learning how to do this, horses would just come back talking about the most random things when I thought that they were going to answer a specific question. No, they
yeah,
were off somewhere else, talking about something else. I was like, but I need to know about this. For example, I would ask, like, how are you doing today? And I would get a laundry list of things they want changed with their world. And I'm like,
I want a new
okay,
paddock. I want a different water tub. I want this.
yeah, things like that. So
Yeah.
and most horses will I call it the lodge their complaint phase. And once they get that out, I'm like, okay. So if you had, let's say, a new paddock, that would make you feel how? And
Right.
then they'll tell me, and then they'll just talk. They're very into talking about their owners as well. So you always have to ask the owner, if you're starting to read for other people, you always have to ask them if they want to know everything the horse has to say.
Yep. I bet some people are like, you can put a filter on that. Like,
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And horses have good days and bad days, like just like we do. So
Right.
sometimes they're in a little bit of a mood, and I'm like, yeah, that's really blunt. I'm not gonna say that, but I'm gonna like make it nice. I'm gonna figure out a way to be nice, because let's be nice. That's the point
Right.
of this. Be nice.
Right.
But
Kindness
yeah,
matters.
kindness matters. And also, if you're just starting to do this, I'd probably say just don't get discouraged. There's no such thing as 100% accuracy in this field, because us and humans and animals, we all have like free will. Any tiny little thoughts that we have or action that we do can change the outcome of a situation.
Right.
Horses included. They might not necessarily have like the free will of coming and going as much as they would like from
Right.
place to place, because usually they do have a owner that they're supposed to stay with and not wander around town. But they can make a decision about where to go, what to do, how to interact with other horse. Do I want to bug the boss mare or not, kind of thing. So there's no such thing as if there's a 100% accuracy. So if you're wrong, that's okay.
That's how
That
you grow.
happens. That's how you grow. That's how you learn. And as you do that, you develop what I call your spirit language. That spirit is what I call, a lot of us call, the unseen worlds as a whole. It's like a catchphrase for everything. Working
Yep.
with spirit, which is why my horse is also named Spirit.
Love spirit.
I know. The fact that she looks like Spirit from the Disney movie is a whole different thing. I put that aside. I named her Spirit first, and then my friends were like, oh, the movie. And I'm like, I didn't think of that. Nope, not the movie. Not at all based on the movie. But yeah, just be gentle with yourself.
Right.
If you're just have compassion for yourself as well as with the animals and the people that you're working with, because a lot of times people aren't happy when they're speaking to me.
Yeah.
So you need to it's always helpful to get some background in how to work with people as well as with horses or
Yes.
any other type of animal that you choose to work with.
Yep.
I've read for so many different types of animals, ranging from what we would consider exotic animals in zoos to like a turtle. But
Right.
yeah, so I know very well that I'm not supposed to approach, let's say, a tiger on my own, wander into a zoo and approach a tiger in the enclosure. Just learn a little bit about the animal, how they work. And it'll keep you safe, it'll keep the animal safe, it'll keep the owner safe.
Right.
And just, if sometimes it's good to have a bit of a background in learning how to talk with people, not necessarily saying you have to have like a degree in anything like that, but
But
just
just understanding human
yeah,
behavior too.
exactly.
Because we all have
Exactly.
patterns and things
Mm-hmm.
that, get in the way of us being our
Yeah.
best selves. So
Yeah.
we don't always
And
communicate the best.
exactly. And
Good to learn that.
one of the biggest things is also to trust in what comes to you. Trust that that's what the horse says, and not to second guess yourself. And even if it sounds totally, absolutely bonkers to you, still say it. Because usually it's going to make sense to them and they'll be like, oh, yeah. For example, I had a horse talking about this really random, weird clown thing that I was like, oh my God, are we talking about the movie It? I don't know what that was. So I was like, this isn't, how is this relevant? This was what was going on in my brain. And I'm like, okay, this is going to sound really weird, but they're talking about a clown. And to me, it's conjuring the image of It. And they're like, oh God. Oh God. Oh God, yeah. My my son-in-law showed up wearing a costume like that the day before yesterday.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
the horse wasn't a fan of the costume.
It sounds not like
let's put it that way. He wasn't a fan of the costume, but he also didn't really like that that person had a red balloon. Because the balloon was doing weird things according to the horse.
Oh my God, poor thing.
Yeah. So you always have to just say it. I don't know, I was in the middle of the show barn and I was talking about It.
And people are like,
but then they're like, yeah, okay, I get it. So things just randomly will come
make
out
sense
of,
to people.
they'll let it come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
It'll make sense. And if it doesn't make sense at the time, don't retract it. Because usually they'll go back, they're like, oh my God, totally forgot about that. Totally remember that. And then, or they'll see it happening and they'll be like, oh, and then they'll get back to you and be like, yeah, so this happened. You were right. Right.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Like. I think that's great advice. And I feel like even if we're not going to go down the road of like communicating necessarily to animals, I think it's really good advice that you just gave to just, be in tune with people, but also be in tune with their horses and develop a better understanding of both. Because I feel like that helps us to be more personable and more relatable too. Especially if you have like an objective to work with a horse, or if you're a trainer, or, it's important to know who you're working with, not just the who the horse, but the who the person.
Exactly.
So I think that's really, really awesome advice. And we do have a couple of last questions here. But before we get into the last couple questions, I wanted to touch on where you draw your inspiration from. Is there a specific person that has inspired you to go down this road, or is there a particular instance in your life that inspired you? Where do you get your motivation and inspiration to do this?
There isn't exactly just one person or one instance. And for me, it's not so much, this is going to sound a little weird, it's not so much the people, it's the personal experiences I've had with horses throughout my life that have inspired me. The way they tackle things when they work with you, and you can feel that they want to work with you, is just different than a horse that you can feel is just, going through the motions, isn't very happy. And it always inspires me because there have been, when I was little, when I was about 10 years old, my parents moved across the world to a country where I couldn't speak the language at all. But I gravitated to my horses there. And they were my rock. They heard every story I had to share. And we went through so many different experiences. And some were, looking back, things I would which should not have done probably with horses, off on little adventures. And I had to rely on like certain sticky situations and trail rides in the middle of deserts kind of thing. And I had to rely a lot on the horse's instinct to get me out of them.
Right.
So it's really these this connection and these horses that inspire me themselves. People are great too, but it's just for me, the depth of what a horse has is not something that is always, doesn't always receive the focus that I personally think they should have, because horses have so many different personalities. They're so capable of abstract thought, have so many different feelings. They know what you're going to do usually before you do it. And a lot of the times they're in the horse world, they're seen as kind of like, this is a horse, this is how we deal with it. And for
And
me,
this is used
of
for
course,
my purposes and my purposes
hmm
only.
so for me, it's really about like just understanding the essence and the being of this horse. And once you have a glimpse of that, it's kind of like you're just inspired by it. It's like, yeah, I almost died there because I was a stupid teenager, and you literally, the horse saved my life by wanting to work with me and just being like, yeah, you're just, I'm not going to listen to you, and I'm just going to get us out of this situation.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, just don't go running off at full gallop, riding off at full gallop in the middle of a desert without realizing where things end and start and all that stuff. So
I am definitely one night gonna have a cocktail with you and hear this entire story because I'm already intrigued.
Yeah, that sounds great. It was just like that. Yeah,
That's awesome. That's
I
really
saved
cool.
my life. So I was like, and then I really started just being inspired how they keep other horses in check, but sometimes in a very gentle way, and just watching all this energy and kind of like, oh, we have a lot to learn from horses. We have a lot
We
to
do.
learn.
We totally do. Totally do.
Yeah. So horses inspire me as an animal communicator. That might not be surprising. And of course, there are people that inspire me as well, but it's usually people that are willing to forge their own path with horses in some way or another, willing to stick their neck on the line for these horses,
Yeah.
and helping heal people with horses. The Whether it's working with veterans and horses, or I have someone who's like a brother to me who is really autistic, and he just blooms around horses.
Wow.
Yeah, I love him to death, and just put him with a horse and life is easier for him.
That's awesome.
So people who work with horses in that way as well, and let horses work that way too, they're the ones that really inspire me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very
And
cool.
and you're included in that too. The way, no, I'm serious now that I'm thinking about it. The way that you approach a horse. I remember you worked with one of my horses was Sir Galahad, and you're like, oh, we're walking this way. Okay, we're walking that way. So people who move with horses, who are in tune with horses like that. Yeah.
I love that. That's cool. Well, thanks for letting me work with them. I enjoy it too, obviously.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that that horses inspire you, and people too. People that are willing to be an advocate, because in a lot of ways, being stewards of these creatures, we're also responsible not just to use them for our purposes, but also like have their backs just as much as we hope
Of
they would have
course.
our backs when
Hopefully they'll weigh their options.
Right. Exactly. No,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah,
That's cool.
absolutely. And they all have their different personalities, but generally speaking, if you have a connection with a horse, they're there for you through anything pretty much you can imagine.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to get out of it, they know how to get out of it. So at that point, it's just like, it's kind of like autopilot, but auto horse. Just let them horse and you'll be fine.
Oh, 100%. And I have a quick, before we start to wind down with the last couple questions.
Sure.
An interesting story I went through with that. I live on a dirt road, and it's nothing but woods behind my house. And
Cool.
so it's around dusk, like summertime. And I'm like, you know what? Just got home from work. I'm just going to jump on him. And there's a mountain behind my house, and it's 2 miles from the driveway to the summit. I'm
Yeah.
like, Harley, I think we can do this. I think we can beat the sun. So I saddle him up,
Yeah.
and we go down, and we get to the top of the mountain, and we're on the top of the mountain. I'm like, yeah, we did it. Awesome. And the sun is barely there. And I'm looking down at the forest because there's obviously a clearing at the summit of the mountain. And I'm looking down into the forest, and it's pitch dark. So I'm like starting to go back into the woods with him. And I'm hearing things. I'm hearing big footprints that are not his. I'm hearing
that's nice.
in the leaves and whatever.
Yeah.
And I just remembered taking my feet out of the stirrups, grabbing mane.
Yep.
And I was like, you have to get us home because I can't see.
Yeah.
And I remember for the first time, like it was one of the first times I fully relinquished control. And I said, I am fully relying on you to get us home. And I was talking to him the whole time, but I was also like singing at the top of my lungs because I was so worried.
Of course.
And I'm like, nothing is going to come near a singing loud thing.
That's true.
So I'm literally singing so loud. I don't even know what I was singing or humming, but 2 miles through the woods, this crazy person just like singing and like letting her horse. I literally remembered closing my eyes because I didn't want to see anything coming for us. I'm like, if I'm going to die on the back of my horse, I'm just going to, that's just
the way it's going to be.
And I just like felt him under me. And before I knew it, when I opened my eyes again, we're at the base of where my driveway is. And I'm like, oh, and I gave him the biggest hug. I'm like, I love you so much. Thank you for bringing me home. I was like, but when you said that, it brought that memory to my mind. I'm like, we really do count on them. Like,
yeah, we do. And we need to nurture that connection because we want to be in a situation where our horse cares enough
100%
to bring us back with them. Because I have no doubt that they can figure out the way they want to go.
Yep. 100%.
Ideally, they'll let us come along on the way back that we get to come to.
Right. Hopefully, right? That's awesome.
You want your horse to be like, yeah, I want to go home. And I should bring my human with me. I should, for one reason or another.
Right.
Yes, for food and to be fed.
Back, so let's.
Yeah, exactly. So human needs to come along.
Yep.
Yes, we did a silly thing, but the human will learn and we'll go.
And he was so brave. Like, I just remember him being like really sure-footed, like under me. I felt him like and it almost felt like he was more proud that he had that role of full control, that he just, he's a Percheron quarter horse. So he's just like a big dude anyway.
He's going to be there.
I mean, I'm biased, but I think that's the best mix you can get. And I just love the bigger horses.
I'm partial to my little buckskin mare. Mustang.
For sure. Oh yeah, I mean, I would take a Mustang any day, but
careful what you wish for there.
Well, no, I truly, I want to have 100 of them one day. I'm not even kidding. I want to have 100 Mustangs in my backyard. No joke.
Well,
mark my words. This recording, I am manifesting this.
Absolutely. I'll be right there manifesting right alongside with you.
Awesome.
What is that saying? Horses are like potato chips. You can't just have one.
It's true. It's so true.
You have to have another and then another, and then you got like hundreds, especially Mustangs. I love Mustangs. I love all horses, but my horses are usually like Mustangs or Arabians.
Yes.
Like the Middle Eastern version, or Arabians, which is slightly different.
Yeah, and they're still magical too. I have such an appreciation for Arabs, and I didn't, because again, with stigmas, right? You hear a lot about different breeds that have stigmas, but really, it's not the horse.
No, it's not.
That end up with them. Unfortunately, it's the people that, the wrong horse and the wrong human match. Like, it's just not the best combination, and so the stigma is a derivative of that.
Yeah, and the horses, they don't care about what breed a horse is, or
they don't look at any of that,
what color, or how tall, or pedigree. And those things can be important in certain things, of course, realms of the horse world, of course. But horses, they can work it out. They'll work it out. And it would be nice if humans at some point reach a little bit of what horses could do, even a little bit better.
Totally.
But yeah.
I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. So I, of
Yes.
course, have lost track of time because
Me too.
these are amazing conversations, but no, we're actually good. But just a couple final
Sure.
thoughts and questions. So I usually, so before I ask those though, I've probably said that 3 or 4 times, but I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your beautiful wisdom and communication skills, and what you're doing in the horse world. It's really, I think it's making a difference. Be here. I mean, it's great. I mean, I want to do, more of this, and I definitely want to have more conversations and explore that too, just so people are more aware. And I think people can make better decisions for their animals, like we were talking in the beginning. The more exposure and the more education we have around things like this, the more people can learn and grow. And if you're not growing, you're dying, right? If you're not expanding, if you're not trying to get to the best version of yourself, it's really hard to have better solutions and better strategies with things, especially with our animals. So I just want to honor you and thank you for coming on and being who you are and being a light. You really are a beacon, and I appreciate what you're doing. So I have kind of a fun question to ask you. It's like, sure. It's one that I ask everybody, but it's called the 3 gold nugget question. Okay. Oh. So if everything you ever did with horses for some reason or not got deleted, right? And nobody could, track back anything that you've done, whether it's communicating with their parakeet or their pony, they there's no recollection of anything, but you could leave 3 pieces of wisdom or 3 truths, 3 gold nuggets to the horse industry to kind of help them feel guidance with their horses. What would those 3 truths be? If everything was erased. Okay. Oh, but you could leave 3 truths. What would those be? 3 truths. 3 truths is if you think something, more than likely you need to put that aside and look at it again, because you're more than likely missing something or a lot or everything. Just set aside what you know and start again. That's number 1. That's one thing, because there's so many times I've gone into something and I'm like, oh yeah, I think this is what this is going to be. I'm like, yeah, totally wrong. So that's not what I thought at all. That's okay. Cool. Mental note. No. Try to avoid forming certain ideas or biases. Right. Number 2, horses and, well, animals in general, but horses will tell you everything you need to know. Literally, they will have fun talking to you. So if everything's erased, just open that line, open that communication. Say, I want this communication. And then that opens the line for you. And then it's up to the horse. And you'll get a lot of these incoming thoughts and feelings that might be really weird for a human to have. And just be like aware that, okay, that's probably not mine. That's probably, I don't want to eat hay right now. So let's just open this line of communication and just stay. If everything was erased, just look at a horse and say, like, I want to communicate with you on all levels, unseen and seen. And that'll open it. Awesome. And then that starts again. 3rd, there's so many things. Like, what is the 3rd thing? What is the 3rd thing? This is not easy. Thank you. You're welcome. The 3rd thing is that all horses, all connections with horses, all people are unique. There isn't a one size fits all. The way you work with an animal, a horse, or any other type of animal will be dependent on that animal and the connection that you have with that animal. And that's okay. And if something doesn't work, that's okay.
to find a new way that works and gets the results you need. I think that counts as 3.
Yep. No, that was
put some
beautiful.
together.
I love that. Very cool. So,
Yeah.
so my final question, what's something that you in your role in the horse world can say to empower the horse industry? What's one thing that you can say to empower the horse?
Again, with the 1 things and the 3 things and the 1 thing.
Gotta keep it interesting.
Gotta keep it interesting. Anything like, all right, I'm trying to think how to phrase this, because I can speak several different languages, and I'm thinking in all of them right now, all at the same time. So
Good.
I'm like going through my head. No, that's not English. That's not English. Okay. So English. I think that one thing to empower, well, for me, I think it's empowering, but because I work with animals, is just to accept any type of experience that you go through, even if it's something that we will deem more negative or one that we would prefer not to have, just to accept that this has happened and see what we can learn from it, and how to like move through that. There are countless experiences with horses I wish I didn't have. But I can point to every single one of them and say, I know what I would do differently. That situation. I grew from this situation. And then there are all these horses that I love, and amazing experiences with them. And with those great experiences, I can do the same thing. I can point and pull out the gems from those. But I can tell you that I would be a very different person if I didn't have all of my experiences molded together, framing what I'm doing. Whether it's a harsh trainer, or a welcoming trainer, or someone who's a bit skeptic, or someone who's extremely skeptic, that I try my best. And I always have to remind myself, because it's not easy to embrace all these experiences, to just be like, okay, that happened, so let's move through it. Let's work our way through that. That's something I guess I would say.
I love that. I think it's extremely empowering, and I feel like we can't control everything that happens to us and our horses or our animals in general, but what we can be in control of is the meaning, and we can choose to make it a meaning that educates us and makes us better and stronger, or we can choose to be upset or angry towards a situation we couldn't control, and then we don't get anything from it. But I think the second we change the meaning of something, or the second we find out how our worst day was our best day, like you said, I think that's invaluable. I think that's something that you can really take and, live a beautiful life through that. So that's probably the best empowering thing I've heard. So that's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, it is. It's not always easy to do, but it does help.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, you gem of a human. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, this was a blast. I loved it. Please, let's do this again.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we do need to do those
with the cameras off, obviously, too, because I'd love to visit with you again. So
of course, you're obviously welcome to where we are anytime.
Cool. Very cool.